Can you interpret and construct simple pictograms, tally charts, block diagrams, and simple tables? This presentation should help you understand and support your maths learning this week. What I'm going to do is go through pictograms, tally charts, and block diagrams. You might have come across some of these before or seen these before when we've done our maths learning, but we haven't actually thought about what the information in them means in the way that we need to in year 2. So each of these is a way of representing information. They're all part of data handling. Now, data is just another word for information. So when we are looking at pictograms and tally charts and block diagrams, they are just different ways of representing information. So we need to be really, really clever and detective data handlers, thinking about what the information is telling you. Hopefully this will support your learning. So this first chart that we're looking at is a tally chart. And this is a tally chart that somebody has made for the number of birds that they have seen in their garden. So if we first of all look at the columns, so there's a column of garden birds, and each type of bird here is written down in the column. So robin, chaffinch, magpie, blue tit, and pigeon. In the next column, we've got the tally. So we've got some tallies which show us how many of each type of bird has been seen in the garden. So then if we go across the rows, we can see, for example, the top row, robin, we can count 1, 2, 3, 4 robins have been seen in the garden. Sometimes there's an extra column here which will tell you what the tally means. There isn't on this one, but sometimes there is. The chaffinch, if we look across the row here, looks slightly different. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And then there's a tally that strikes across those 4 tallies. That means that there's a count of 5. When we get to 5, we put this strike across, and then if we saw a 6th one, we would then we would start again and put another tally. And then that would happen for each block of 5 tallies. Have a look at this tally chart for me and just have a think about which type of bird was seen the least in the garden, and perhaps which bird was seen the most in the garden. So here we've got another tally chart, and this tally chart, if we have a look at the titles in the top of each column, we've got favourite animal and we've got number of children in the second column. So this tally chart here is telling us which type of animal children have chosen when they were asked as their favourite animal. Across the rows we've got dog, cat, snake, bear, horse and goose. Now we can see here, if we look in the row that says dog, we can see 2 sets of 5 tallies. So I can look at those straight away and see that they've got the strike across the 4 tallies to show that it's a count of 5. So I can see straight away that 10 children picked dog as their favourite animal. If we have a look at the cat row, I can see there that there is a count of 5 with 5 tallies, the strike across, and then 3 extras, so that makes a count of 8. So just looking at a different way that a tally chart might look when we have a look at it. As I said, there might sometimes be an extra column after number of children, which actually gives us a number that the tallies add up to, what their value is worth, which sometimes helps you with the information. So on this one here, we've got a blank tally chart. And as I mentioned before, sometimes there is a total, like there is here. So we would put the tally in and then we would put the total number in. And what it's asking here is, rather than actually giving you the name of a fruit or a vegetable, we've got pictures to represent it. Okay, this doesn't make it a pictogram. This is still a tally chart because it's the information that we're being given is actually in a tally form still. So I filled the chart in here now, okay, and you can see that I filled in the numbers as well. You can see actually once you put the numbers in the total here, or even if you wanted to write them just after the tallies here, it makes it a lot easier to see straight away what information we are working with. just take a look at this chart here and tell me what was the most popular fruit or vegetable with the children. What was the most popular fruit or vegetable with the children? So what I want you to do now is I want you to have a go at writing these two numbers as a tally. So I want you to have a go at writing the number 10 as a tally, just on a piece of paper or a whiteboard if you've got one, and then have a go at writing the number 12 as a tally. And just get an adult or someone older than you to have a look at what you've done and just make sure that's right before we move on. So we're going to move on to pictograms now, and as the title Pictograms suggests, the information here is represented with pictures. So if we have a look at a pictogram, this pictogram we've got here, we'll have a look at the top of each of the columns straight away to think about what the information is telling us. The first column says favourite animal, and the second column says the number of children. And then we can see there's some pictures of children to represent a number. Now, the most important thing on pictograms is to have a look for a key. Now, this key is going to tell us what each of the pictures represents. And this is where we've got to be a little bit careful, because if you just have a look at the pictures and you don't look for the key, sometimes each picture might represent a different number. It doesn't always necessarily represent the number 1. So we have a quick look around for the key, and we can see at the bottom that each one of those pictures equals 1 child. So we can, on this pictogram, just count in ones. So if we look at the row that is titled dog and see how many children there are in that row, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And as with the tally chart, sometimes I just find it a little bit easier to write at the end of each row what the amount is, and then that just makes it a little bit easier when you're answering questions later on. Can you have a look at the pictogram and just have a think, maybe tell an adult or somebody else in the room how many children like bears as their favourite animal? So this pictogram here looks slightly different. So rather than going across in rows, we've got some columns here. And at the bottom, we've got the titles, and we've got banana, grapes, apples, pears. And we can see now on this pictogram, our key is slightly different. So it's telling us that each picture of the fruit is 2 children. So each one, we're going to count in 2s to get our totals. So again, what I might do is at the top here, I could write in actually what the information is telling me. So let's just try that with the bananas. So if we count in 2s, because each banana is worth 2 children, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And then I would write 10 at the top here. Let's have a quick look at the pears. So let me just check the pears. So exactly the same. The pears, each pear is worth 2 children, 2, 4, 6. And then I would write a 6 at the top here. This pictogram here is telling me about favourite colours. This one's got a title at the top here, and then it's got each of the colours at the bottom. I'm going to look straight over at the key, and it's telling me that each circle of colour is worth 2 children. So for example, in red, again I'm going to count in 2s. Let's see how many children liked red as their favourite colour. 2, 4, 6, 8. Moving over to the blue, it looks slightly different. And if I look across again, the green and the yellow have got something slightly different. I wonder what this means. Looking back at the key, a full circle tells me that that is worth 2 children. On the blue, we've got half a circle. So that means half a circle is worth half of that amount. So half of that amount is 1 child. This is just a different way to show the information, and we've just got to be careful of this when we're counting and when we're then answering questions about the information. So in the blue column, I would have 2, 4, 6, and 1 more is 7. So 7 children like blue as their favourite colour. This is where it becomes a little bit easier to have your numbers at the top so you can see that information straight away for later on. Moving on to block diagrams now. Now you might have seen something like these before, and what these are is just a different way of showing information. So if I had a tally chart, I could put that information into a pictogram, or I could put that information into a block diagram. It's just a different way of representing the information. Now, this block diagram here, you need to try and think about what it is that you're looking at straight away. So I've got some numbers in this first column, and I've got some different animals across the bottom. So I've got a snowy owl, a walrus, a polar bear, a whale, looks like a Arctic fox, a walrus, that one must be a seal there, a walrus, and a reindeer. So we're thinking about different types of Arctic animals, and we can see quite clearly on here the count because it just goes up in one. So wherever the different colour stops is how many of each animal we are thinking about. So the snowy owl, we've got 1, 2. Over here to the whale, these blocks go all the way up to 5. Sometimes if you're looking at this information in front of you, it's quite useful to get a ruler and place the ruler across the block that you're looking at to try and match it up with a number to see which number it's reaching. Just makes it a little bit easier to look at and to think about what the information is telling you. This is a different type of block diagram. What you need to do is when you're looking at these block diagrams, as we did with on pictograms, you need to make sure that you understand what the information is that you're looking at. So straight away, let's have a look at the numbers down the side here. So we can see that they're not going up in ones this time, they are going up in twos. But that's okay because we know that now, we've spotted it straight away. Something else when we're looking at this type of block diagram here, it's always important to have a think about what the information is actually telling you. So we've got a title here, it says Class A's favourite activities. So we know now that this diagram is showing us favourite activities of a class. So at the bottom here we've got football, rugby, hockey, netball and swimming. Now on the side here and down the bottom here we've got some different titles. Now what we do, we call these labelling the axis, and you might not need to know this in year 2, but you will need to know this as you move into Key Stage 2, so it's a word just to keep in your mind is axis. So on this axis we've got it being labelled, this is the amount of children, and down here this is the type of activities, okay? And that's just so that it gives us a little bit more information about what it is that we're looking at. So let's have a look at the information in this diagram. So here in the first column we've got football. So for football, let's just have a quick look. If we count up in twos, so 2, 4, 6. Now it doesn't go all the way up to 8. It falls halfway between 6 and 8. So that number there is going to be 7. So again, like I would have done with the one before, I would put the number at the top to tell me what that information is telling me, just because it's a little bit easier when you are answering questions. Let's have a look at rugby. So again, 2, 4, and then it stops halfway between. Again, sometimes it's useful to put a ruler here and have a look so it matches up at the side here to tell us exactly what that number is. It's halfway between the 4 and the 6, so this is going to be 5. So 5 children have picked that as their favourite activity. If we look at hockey, you can see that the blocks are filled in all the way up to that number 10. So they're full blocks, so we're going to count in twos, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So you can see that there are different things to think about when looking at block diagrams, and it's always really important that rather than just answering the questions straight away, that you've taken some time to have a look at the information and think about what it is that it's telling you. I hope that's helped you with your maths learning this week, year 2. So really think about what the information is that you're looking at when you're thinking about tally charts and pictograms and block diagrams. And please look back at this if you need some help with your work this week, or get in touch with us by email.